Sarah scored a 22 on her first quiz, then a 45, then a 98. Her report card says 55%. She failed. But look at what actually happened. She walked in not knowing the material, and she walked out knowing almost all of it. That is the exact thing school is supposed to produce. And the gradebook recorded it as a failure. I want to show you why that happens and why it is not Sarah's fault, your fault, or even your principal's fault. It is the math. The gradebook is doing exactly what it was built to do. The problem is what it was built to do. I taught math for more than a decade. For most of those years, I averaged grades like everyone else, because that is what the spreadsheet was set up to do, and nobody handed me an alternative. I just trusted the number. I shouldn't have. Here is a claim I'll stand behind for the rest of this video. The average is the least honest number on a report card. We treat it as an objective because it comes from arithmetic. Arithmetic is not the same as truth. Think about what an average does. It takes every score a student ever earned and gives them all equal weight. The quiz she bombed in week 1 counts exactly as much as a test they aced in week 10. It says the beginning and the ending of learning matters the same amount. No one actually believes that. We just let the spreadsheet believe it for us. So a grade becomes a graveyard. Every early mistake is buried in there forever, dragging the final number down long after the student fixed the mistake. Sarah's 22 is still sitting inside her 55%. She corrected it months ago. The gradebook never forgave her. And the single worst offender is the 0. On a 100-point scale, a 0 isn't one bad grade. It is a crater. To climb back from 1 0, a student has to earn several near perfect scores just to reach the average. Think about the message that sends. Miss one assignment for any reason, and the system tells you the climb back is almost impossible. So, the rational student stops climbing. We didn't mean to teach them to give up. The scale taught them for us. A dishonest number doesn't just misrepresent learning, it changes behavior. We build a hope killer and call it accountability. And this is where the word matters. When a number says a student failed who actually learned the material, that number is not measurement. It is a fiction. I call it mathematical fraud. And I don't use a phrase for drama. Fraud is when the record doesn't match reality. Sarah mastered the content. Her record says she didn't. That is, by definition, a false record. And you feel it. Every teacher I know has had the moment where they look at a final grade, know in their gut it's wrong, and submit it anyway. Because the system has no box for this number doesn't describe this child. We override our own judgment to obey a spreadsheet. So why do we do this? Because the average was never built to measure learning. It was built to sort. It comes from a model of school designed to rank students for a labor market that needed a few managers and a lot of workers. Sorting needs a clean number that spreads people across a curve. learning, it needs something else entirely. The bell curve makes this obvious. It assumes that in any class, a fixed share of students will fail, a fixed share will excel, and most will land in the middle. That's a certain assumption baked into the tool. It has nothing to do with whether you actually taught the material well. We kept the sorting tool and quietly started calling it a learning tool. The two jobs aren't the same, and the average is loyal to the first one. Let me make this concrete. Two students both finished the unit scoring 95 on the final test. Both understand the material now. Student A understood it from day one. Student B struggled early, failed 2 quizzes, then caught up completely. Under averaging, A walks away with a 90, B walks away with a 68. Same knowledge at the finish line, a 20-point gap on a report card to B. One of those numbers is wrong, and it is not the 90. So what should a grade measure? Where the student landed, not the average of every stumble on the way there. If a student shows you by the end of the unit that they understand fractions, then they understand fractions. The week they were lost is information for you while you teach. It is not a permanent tax on their final grade. We don't test for a driver's license by averaging every mistake someone made while learning to park. We check whether they can drive now. This idea has names: mastery-based grading, standards-based grading. They differ in details, but they share one belief. A grade should describe what a student can do, measured against a clear standard. I won't hand you a whole system in one video, but here is the shift. Everything else hangs on. Stop asking, what is the average of everything this student has done? Start asking, what is the most recent, most reliable evidence of what this student can do now? That one change does most of the work. A student who struggled and then fixed it gets credit for fixing it. Your most recent assessment carries more weight than the one from the month ago because it is closer to the truth of where they are. And a kid like Sarah, who crawled from 22 to a 98, gets a grade that says 90-ish, not 55. And before you tell me your district won't allow it, start smaller. You may not control the number the system spits out yet, but you control which evidence you trust when you look at a parent in the eye. Now, I can hear the pushback because I made it myself for years. Isn't that just letting kids off the hook? Doesn't effort matter? And the honest answer is yes to the last one. Effort matters enormously while the learning is happening. That is where your feedback lives. But the grade is not a reward for effort. The grade is a statement about what the student knows. When you mix the two, you get a number that means nothing precise. And parents, students, and the next teacher all have to guess what it represents. Here is what you can do tomorrow. Before you change a single policy, open your gradebook. Find one student whose average is dragging behind where you know they actually are. Look at their scores in order, left to right, and watch the shape of the line. If it climbs, the number is lying about them. You don't have to fix it this week. You just have to stop trusting the lie. Sarah didn't fail. The math failed her. Once you see that, you can't unsee it. And you start grading the student in front of you instead of average of who they used to be. That's where this starts. I'll see you in the next one.